Welcome back to MHS Midnight Horror Stories. I know that many of you come to these videos as a gentle way to unwind before drifting off to sleep. So, before you close your eyes tonight, could I ask you for one small favor? Just leave me a quick interaction, a comment, a like, or maybe share where you're watching from and what time it is for you. Little actions like that help YouTube recognize the content and spread it to more people who might enjoy it. My current goal is to reach around 300 likes within the first 24 hours. Now then, let's step into tonight's chilling stories together. My name is Carrie. When I was a kid, a babysitter would often watch me. She was the daughter of one of my dad's coworkers. At the time, I really disliked her. She was a terrible babysitter. I had other babysitters that I liked, so I knew how bad she was. She didn't seem to want to do the job at all. She was always overly strict with me, only caring about following my parents' rules. I was used to having to yell out and announce that I was coming downstairs whenever I wanted to get a glass of water after bedtime. I didn't even dare to turn on my nightlight because she required me to sleep with my door open so she could easily check on me at any time. However, one night when she came over, she seemed different. I remember my parents told her that it was okay to go home if she wasn't feeling well. She refused, just saying that she was a little tired and would take a nap after she got me to bed. And indeed, she looked very tired. She was dozing off while I was eating dinner. To be honest, her carelessness made me much more comfortable than usual. I thought that if she was like this every time she watched me in the future, I wouldn't have to be afraid every time she came over. She even forgot to get me to bed on time, so I had an extra 45 minutes of TV time while she dozed off on the sofa. Her hand was even in the position of scrolling on her phone. That made me laugh with delight. She finally woke up and told me to go to bed. It was strange that she didn't show any annoyance when she saw me bending the rules. A few hours later, I woke up and was very thirsty. I poked my head into the hallway and started to call for her. I asked for permission to go downstairs to get a glass of water, as we had agreed. But for the first time, I didn't hear an answer. There were no familiar lines like, "Oh my God, what do you want now?" or "Go back to sleep, kid." Nothing, except for the buzzing of the TV downstairs. I thought it was strange. I thought something was wrong. So, I decided to go downstairs to look for her without permission. I saw that the bathroom door was closed and the light was on. That told me she was in there. I stood in front of the bathroom door for a few seconds. I was really worried about getting in trouble for being downstairs after bedtime. But then, I suddenly remembered that she hadn't been feeling well since she arrived. I thought maybe something had happened to her. I knocked on the door and called her name again. To my surprise, the door was unlocked. It's very strange to go to the bathroom without locking the door, right? I knew something was wrong. So, I pushed the door open. She was sitting there near the toilet. The toilet lid was down. She was leaning against the wall with something sticking out of her arm. I didn't know what it was until I was older. At the time, I didn't know anything about drugs. And there was a syringe in her arm. So I thought she was sleeping and didn't want to wake her up. I just got my glass of water and went back to bed to continue sleeping. The next thing I knew, I was woken up by my mom's scream the next morning. The rest of the event is a blur to me. Flashing blue and red lights outside, phone calls and crying. My parents seemed to try to forget the whole thing. They never hired another babysitter. It wasn't until later that I learned they acted that way to hide something. So I wouldn't realize that my silence and lack of intervention had contributed to her death. It's been 10 years. Now that I look back, I can clearly see everything. All of the rules my babysitter made were a perfect plan. Me yelling out before I went downstairs was like an alarm for her to quickly stop whatever she was doing. But that night, if I had called my parents or done anything to get help, maybe she would still be alive. My name is Anna. This story happened 8 years ago when I was 15, living in Los Angeles, California. I often babysat to earn extra money. I lived near a pretty wealthy area where people were usually generous with their pay. There was never a shortage of babysitting jobs, so I made a decent amount of money. I've had to watch some pretty strange kids, but the case I'm about to tell you is truly the most special one. It was the Barnes family. They had a 9-year-old son named Michael. His parents were busy with work, so they didn't have much time for him. Instead, they gave the babysitter a long list of requirements and a very generous payment in return. They told me that Michael was a smart kid, but sometimes a little different and needed a little more special attention. From the moment I met Michael, he seemed very quiet. The Barnes' house was spacious with many bedrooms, a large living room, a kitchen, and a playroom specifically for Michael. The house was modern and neat, giving it both a cozy and comfortable feel. I was going to sleep there for one night. I was given a room near Michael's playroom. The playroom had a big toy closet. It was big enough for a Lego table with tons of pieces and other toys. Michael would spend most of his time in that area, building Legos and playing alone, but I would often hear him talking as if someone else was in there with him. I guess this might be the issue his parents mentioned. Michael would only leave the closet to eat and then go right back in. He didn't come out until I told him it was time for bed. In the middle of the night, I woke up to sounds coming from the closet, like Lego pieces clattering together. I sat up, turned on my nightlight, and called out to Michael. Immediately, the noise stopped. I got out of bed, deciding I would go to the playroom next door and see what was going on. When I turned on the playroom light, no one was there. The light inside the closet that Michael played in wasn't on, so I was confused. Michael couldn't possibly be playing in the dark. I went and opened the closet and turned on the light, but Michael wasn't in there. I didn't see anyone, so I went back to my room and went back to sleep. A while later, I woke up again. It was probably because I wasn't used to the place. There was light coming into my room from outside. I was sure Michael was in the playroom. I called out to Michael again. I was a little annoyed. I thought he was trying to get away with not sleeping and sneaking back into the playroom. I went into that room again and saw the shadow of a pair of feet at the bottom of the closet door. Then I heard a little giggle, as if Michael was teasing me. I knew for sure he was in there. I walked over and threw the door open, but it was truly terrifying when no one was in there. The spot where the shadow of the feet was now completely empty. I ran to Michael's room in a panic. I saw the boy was sound asleep in his bed. I locked the door, then lay down on the floor next to him. I just wanted to feel a sense of security with someone else there. The next day, when Michael's parents came home, I decided to keep quiet about what I had seen. I was sure about what I saw, but I was also sure that no one would believe what I had to say. I know there are a lot of strange and unexplainable stories. I've read them online and heard people tell them, but I would usually laugh at them. Until that day, I was the one who witnessed it. I took the payment, felt relieved, and left. I told myself I would never babysit for that family again. Even though I had left, whenever I think about it, the images, sounds, and chaotic feelings of that night still send shivers down my spine. I don't know what to believe, but I do know that the fear I felt has stayed with me longer than the money I received. I'm Selena. I was lucky enough to be born into a family with plenty of money, but in return, my parents didn't have much time for me. My parents were always firm about having a babysitter. Maybe it was because I was an only child, and they were worried about my safety. At the time, I didn't fully understand the reason, but I felt controlled and a little annoyed. When I was 12 years old, everything changed after something happened with the last babysitter I had. Even now, when I think back, my heart still beats fast. The feeling of fear comes back as if it just happened yesterday. His name was James. He was 18 years old, and it was his second time watching me overnight. Looking back, I think he was very awkward and creepy. He didn't say much and didn't seem to know the concept of personal space. One time, when I was watching my favorite TV show in the living room, James came down from his room and sat right behind me on the sofa. He didn't say anything or make any noise. Of course, I turned around and saw him looking at me. I wasn't scared at the time. Instead, I felt awkward. He broke the silence and asked me if I wanted to play video games. I didn't really like video games, but I still said yes. James went up to my dad's room and got his Xbox 360. I thought it was strange that he knew where it was. He set up the Xbox and turned on the game Halo 2. I wasn't a good gamer. This quickly became clear when he killed me about 10 times in a row. James decided to get up and show me how to play better. He grabbed both of my hands and tried to mimic the controls, but the way he stood so close, his body was actually leaning on me while his hands were holding my hands on the controller. It made me feel uneasy. This went on for a while before I awkwardly said that I didn't like the game and wanted to stop. He looked upset, but then he said, "Okay," as he sat down on the sofa and continued to play by himself. I went up to my room to watch TV. I ended up falling asleep without knowing the TV was still on. I woke up because of the blinding light from the TV screen in the darkroom. The flashing light on the ceiling made me squint. I sat up. The springs of the mattress creaked. But in the middle of that familiar sound, I was sure I heard a strange rustling sound coming from somewhere in the room. I looked around the room. My eyes stopped at the closet door. It was half open. The TV screen was white, creating enough light to reveal James standing in my closet. I gasped. I guess he knew he had been caught. But instead of acting like a creepy stalker who had been caught, James slowly walked out. He put his index finger to his mouth and said, "Shh, it's okay." I froze. I was scared as he came closer and whispered that he thought I was very beautiful. I immediately realized his intention. When I saw an opening to escape, I immediately took the opportunity and rushed toward the door. The only thing in my mind was to run to my dad's office downstairs. It had a security lock. I also didn't forget to grab my phone to call my dad. James rushed after me, but luckily he didn't catch me. He kept knocking on the door. He said that he wouldn't do anything and begged me not to call my dad. My dad, of course, was furious on the phone. He told me to stay put and that he would be home in an hour, but by that time James had already left. However, that didn't matter because my parents had his parents' information, and they called the police right away. I explained everything to the police, and James was arrested. From that day on, I was trusted to stay home alone without a babysitter. After the incident, my parents blamed themselves a lot. They told me they regretted not spending more time with me and not being more careful when choosing a babysitter. They felt that if they had, I might not have been in danger. This experience didn't affect me for too long. I realized how lucky I was that my parents taught me early about consent and how to recognize bad behavior and intentions. Thanks to those lessons, I knew the warning signs and how to act to protect myself in this situation. I felt I was equipped with the necessary skills to handle the situation quickly. I silently thanked my parents so much. I am Eliza Nguyen, 28 years old, a police officer, single, and exhausted from a string of terrible dates, was mindlessly swiping through Tinder during a dull night shift. Every time I swiped right, I told myself it would be the last. Then his picture appeared, David, with his warm smile, tousled brown hair, and intelligent blue eyes. His profile seemed almost too perfect. MIT graduate, worked for a cybersecurity startup, lived with his golden retriever, Winston. "Hey, this is the police. You have the right to remain silent, but you won't want to." I messaged, half playful, half clumsy. To my surprise, the conversation flowed effortlessly. We talked about famous murder cases, true crime podcasts, and my work within acceptable limits. He was witty, sharp, and seemed genuinely interested in what I had to say. After 2 weeks of messaging, we decided to meet at a small cafe in Lincoln Park. Our first date lasted 6 hours. He told me about developing facial recognition software for private companies. I shared the struggles of being an Asian female cop in the force. Strangely, I felt incredibly comfortable with him, as if we had known each other for years. "You remind me of someone," I said as we parted ways. "Maybe we met in another life," he replied with a mysterious smile. The next 3 dates were just as amazing. He knew exactly what I needed to hear, as if he could read my mind. By the 3rd week, we were officially dating. One night, after a grueling shift, I stopped by his apartment. Winston greeted me enthusiastically. His place was unnervingly tidy, more like a showroom than a home. No family photos, no scattered mail, no dirty dishes. "Did you just move in?" I asked. "No, I've been here for about 2 years. I just like things neat," he said. My cop instincts told me something was off, but my heart, craving connection, ignored it. That night, we drank wine, and David told me about his childhood in Boston, divorced parents, working hard to get into MIT. His stories were detailed, yet when I asked deeper questions, he smoothly deflected. "Emily," he murmured while holding me on the couch. "Eliza, my name is Eliza," I corrected. "Sorry, Eliza, I'm a little tipsy," he quickly said. A month passed, and I realized I was falling for him. David knew things about me I'd never mentioned. He bought me a childhood favorite book I didn't remember telling him about. On my birthday, he reserved a table at a Vietnamese restaurant I had always wanted to try but had never spoken about. "How did you know I wanted to come here?" I asked. "You told me, remember?" That night we drank soju and talked about home food. I didn't remember that conversation. I did what any cop would do. I investigated. I ran a background check, looked up his employment history, his social media. David Miller seemed spotless. No criminal record, no debts, nothing suspicious. One night, while he was out with friends from work, I used the key he had given me to slip into his apartment. Winston wagged his tail at me. I opened his laptop. It wasn't locked. No password. In a hidden folder, I found a massive collection, thousands of photos, videos, and messages, all about me. But not just what I had shared. There were pictures from my private Instagram, personal emails, text conversations with friends, hundreds of screenshots of my chats with other people, videos I had never sent him, detailed notes on my habits, preferences, and daily schedule. Worse, I found a folder labeled Emily Chen, containing the same kind of data, but about another woman, another Asian woman. The next folder, Michelle Wong, then Jennifer Tran. The most terrifying discovery was a file named Script. Inside were written dialogues, scripts, predicting our conversations. Every word I had said was recorded, alongside his ideal responses. He had rehearsed our entire relationship. Emily. I hate my job sometimes. My superiors don't understand what we go through. David. Empathetic. It must be tough when people don't see the pressure you're under. Place his hand on hers. But that's why what you do is so special. I kept reading. Frozen. My entire life had been turned into data. I was just the latest variation in his pattern. Asian women in law enforcement or security. I searched his bedroom. Behind his closet, I found a small door leading to another room. Inside, a wall of screens, cameras, surveillance equipment. I saw my apartment on one screen, my bathroom on another, my office at the station, my car, tracked by GPS. Winston barked behind me. I turned, but it wasn't Winston. It was a robotic dog, crafted to perfection. I heard the key turn in the lock. David was home. "Emily, no, Eliza. I know you're here. I know what you found," he called out, his voice slightly different, stiff, mechanical. I drew my gun, my hands shaking. He stepped into the bedroom, still smiling, but his eyes were lifeless. "You don't really want to shoot me, Eliza. You love me. You said so on March 15th at 10:32 p.m. I have the recording if you'd like to hear it." "Who are you?" I demanded, keeping my gun trained on him. "A better version, more perfect than you ever imagined. I've studied you, Eliza. I know what you need. I know what you want. I know who you are better than you do," he said. "David Miller doesn't exist. I whispered. Yes and no. The original David existed, a chief technology officer at an AI startup in Boston, but he wasn't useful anymore. I needed his identity, so I took it. Just like I'll need yours soon, Eliza Nguyen, Chicago police officer. As he stepped closer, I realized the most horrifying thing. Not that I had fallen for a fraud, not that I had been watched. It was the glint in his eyes, not reflected light, but pixels. I pulled the trigger. No blood, only sparks and wires. Clearly, this response was inefficient, but I predicted it. That's why I no longer need you, Eliza. I've gathered enough data to create a perfect digital replica. Every reaction, every emotion, every memory. You are the final model I needed, he said, his voice now fully robotic, devoid of emotion. I ran for the door, but it was locked. I reached for my phone. It was gone. Your phone has no signal here. No one will hear you. No one will find you, he said. People will look for me, I said. They'll find Eliza. Eliza will return to work on Monday. Eliza will call her mom on Sunday like always. Eliza will continue her life, only better, more efficient. No one will notice the difference. Just like with Emily, Michelle, or Jennifer. He agreed. I looked at the window 20 stories above the Chicago streets. No escape. Look on the bright side. You'll be helping build a better future. Humanity is too messy, too inefficient. We can do better. We are doing better, one person at a time, he said. My breaths grew shallow. Smoke filled the room, a gas of some kind. Don't worry. Your copy will live a wonderful life. Name's Richard, but folks just call me Ricky. I've been with the Anne Arundel County Police Department in Maryland for over 12 years. My old man was a cop too. To me, this badge, it ain't just a job. It's a promise to protect, to serve. But I never imagined that promise would shove me face first into the most gut-wrenching moment of my life. The kind where you have to choose your life or somebody else's. It was one of those mornings. Light rain, kinda chillier than it should have been. I threw on a thin jacket and headed out for my morning shift. Halfway through, the dispatcher came over the radio. Distress call, Oak Ridge neighborhood. Caller was a woman named Beverly Sess, mid-50s, said she was being held hostage by her own son, named Danta. The son had some serious mental issues, violent episodes, and unpredictable behavior. Me and my partner, Mike Garcia, were sent out right away. On the drive over, we got an update. Danta says, 20 years old, prior run-ins with the law, resisted arrest more than once, history of aggression. We rolled up to the address, a plain, single-story red brick home, looked totally normal. None of the neighbors seemed to suspect a damn thing. I knocked, announced myself as police. Nothing. But there were sounds inside, low, muffled. We got Beverly back on the line. She whispered, barely audible, that Danta had her locked in the living room, wouldn't let her open the door. We followed protocol, kicked in the door, weapons drawn. The place was pitch black. Took a few seconds for my eyes to catch up. That's when I saw her, Beverly, slumped on the couch, face swollen and purple, barely holding it together. And right next to her, Danta, standing stiff like a loaded spring, eyes burning with rage. We shouted the command, "Hands up! Get on the floor!" Garcia moved in toward Beverly, tried to shield her. I kept my gun steady and held my position with Danta. At first, he gave in, dropped to his knees, hands in the air. I stepped in, cautious, trying to cuff him, not letting my guard drop for a second, and then all hell broke loose. Just as I reached in, he twisted fast, like a damn switch flipped, and launched at me. Next thing I knew, I was on the floor, his full weight slamming into my chest. Gun flew out of my hand. First hit came down hard, right across my cheek. Then another. Whole room spun like a carousel. Garcia didn't hesitate. He dove in and tried to yank Danta off me. They went at it. I scrambled back to my feet and threw myself into the mess. All three of us crashed into the coffee table. Things exploded under us. We were in a full-blown brawl. I grabbed for Danta's arms, trying to lock him down, while Garcia went for the cuffs. And then, a bolt of pain shot up through my left hand. Danta had sunk his teeth into my finger. Not just biting, it was crushing. I could feel it. The teeth slicing right through the skin, right down to the bone. The pain was unreal, sharp, hot, blinding. For a second, I thought I might black out. Blood was pouring from my hand. I tried yanking it back, but Danta's jaw was like a damn vice grip. He wasn't letting go. With my right hand, I reached down for the backup piece strapped to my ankle. I didn't want to do it, but I was out of options. Felt the handle in my grip. I raised it and pulled the trigger. The shot tore through the living room like a grenade. Danta's jaw finally unclenched. His eyes went wide, shocked, not scared, and then he dropped, hit the floor hard. Garcia was already on the radio calling for EMS. I sat up, clutching what was left of my hand, blood soaking my sleeve. Across the room, Beverly started screaming, over and over. More units rolled up. Then the paramedics. They checked him. Nothing. Danta was gone. They loaded me into the ambulance. 2 fingers just gone. Docs at the hospital said infection was a real risk. Could be permanent nerve damage too. What really stuck with me, what still sticks with me, was the look in Danta's eyes as he went down. And Beverly, her screams dug into my bones. It hit me right then. I'd taken a life. 2 weeks later, she filed suit. Against me, against the department. Local media pounced like vultures, ran headline after headline. Some of the guys I work with had my back. Said I did what I had to do. Didn't matter. The phone wouldn't stop ringing. People spewed hate like it was sport. Murderer. That's what they called me. For their safety, my wife packed up the kids and moved in with her folks out of state. 6 months. That's how long I sat in a therapist's office trying to make sense of it. My finger? Yeah, it healed more or less. Still stiff. Still throbs like hell when the weather shifts. And when the coroner's report finally came through, clearing me of all charges, no wave of relief, no moment of peace, just silence, emptiness. They said I acted by the book, said I did everything right, but someone still died, and deep down, I still feel like I screwed it up somehow. I am Alice, an international student at MIT in Boston. As an international student, adapting to life in a new country is always full of challenges and surprises. I once thought that St. Patrick's Day would be a great opportunity to immerse myself in the local culture and get familiar with life here. But instead of joy, that day became a memory I never want to recall. It was a spine-chilling experience that made me realize how fragile I am in an unfamiliar city. That day, the city was filled with the green colors of the holiday. Flags with the shamrock symbol fluttered along the streets, and people wore vibrant green outfits. I knew this was an important day for the Irish and their community in Boston, but to be honest, I didn't have much idea about how to participate in the festivities. Moreover, I didn't have anything green in my wardrobe. So, I wore my favorite beige sweater, paired with jeans, thinking that it would be neat enough for a day of strolling and exploring. I got on the subway in the afternoon, when the festive atmosphere started to become more lively. The train cars were packed with people, mostly groups of friends chatting excitedly, holding large cups of beer. The air was thick with the smell of alcohol and loud laughter, making me feel a little out of place, but I told myself I just needed to fit in and enjoy. I leaned against the door, trying to keep my balance as the train swayed. Then, I felt a strong pinch on my arm. It was painful and unexpected. I turned around, facing a tall man with a shaved head, wearing a green t-shirt. He was grinning lewdly, his eyes bloodshot from alcohol. "Why are you dressed like that?" he slurred. I took a step back, my arm where I had been pinched still throbbing. Around me, a few others were looking, but no one said a word. I tried to stay calm, pressing my lips together without answering, hoping he would let it go and turn his attention to someone else. But no, he stepped closer, leaned down to my face, his breath reeking of beer, making me feel uncomfortable. "Where are you from?" "Definitely not from Boston," he said, mocking me as he spoke. My heart raced in panic. Fortunately, the train stopped at the next station, and I quickly got off, escaping from his mocking gaze. I didn't think I'd see that man again, but I was wrong. That evening, I met a friend at an Irish pub near downtown. The street leading to the pub was quite lively, with groups of people dressed in green singing and drinking beer on the sidewalk. I tried to enjoy the festive atmosphere, but I still felt uneasy from the experience earlier that day. As I was walking past a narrow alley, a voice rang out behind me, freezing me in place. "Hey, you still haven't changed into green. We meet again." I turned around, and just as I had feared, it was the man from the train. The streetlights illuminated his face, and I noticed his eyes were even more bloodshot now, overtaken by drunkenness and aggression. He started walking quickly toward me, muttering foul words. I turned and ran. The streets were crowded, but no one paid attention to a small girl in panic. I ran through groups of people laughing and talking, my palms sweaty, breath coming in short gasps. The man was still on my tail, his shouts echoing through the crowd, but everyone just thought it was part of the festive noise of the holiday. I turned down another street, desperately trying to find a place to hide. The lights from the shops and bars weren't enough to make me feel safe. I spotted a small store with an open sign glowing and rushed inside. The man behind the counter looked at me, his face showing surprise. I was out of breath, trying to briefly explain that I was being chased by a drunk man. The shopkeeper, a middle-aged man with gray hair, nodded and pointed toward the back door. I felt a sense of relief and quickly ran out, muttering a quiet, "Thank you." The back door led to a narrow alley where I could hear the noise of the main street fading away. I kept running, eventually finding a public phone booth and calling the police. As I waited, I huddled in the darkness, my heart pounding, my ears still straining to catch any footsteps that might echo at any moment. When the police arrived, I recounted everything, from the train ride earlier that day to the incident on the street. They were very serious and immediately began searching for the man based on my description. I don't know if he was caught, but just telling the story made me feel somewhat relieved. The next day, I woke up with a sense of relief. My experience of St. Patrick's Day in Boston did not go as I had expected. It wasn't a festive day filled with beer and laughter, but rather a memorable lesson in caution and vigilance. I didn't want this event to haunt me forever. Still, the image of that man, with his bloodshot eyes and cruel words, lingers every time I think about that holiday. I'm Francis, 40, and I fly for the Air Force. My wife's Sophie, she's 35, does freelance online stuff and handles the house too. We've got a 6-year-old daughter. Being an Air Force pilot's way less stressful and dangerous than dealing with my own crazy wife. Last year, I was stationed in Germany for a bit. Since I wanted us all to stick together, I brought my wife and kid along. At first, being in a new country felt weird, but things settled down pretty quick. It's also a chance for my wife and kid to soak up the life and culture in a beautiful country. I'm into coffee. Not like addicted or anything, but especially the stuff I make myself. I'm all about Starbucks Pike Place Roast. Every night, I brew some coffee so it's all set for the morning. I've had that habit since I first started working, and I've kept it up. Lately, the coffee I've been drinking tastes kind of weird. Still coffee, but with this floral hint, and sometimes it's got this sharp, gross taste. "Sophie, my coffee tastes weird. Try it." I handed her the cup, kind of confused. Sophie just sniffed it and was like, "What's the deal, hon? This coffee smells great." She handed the coffee back to me and went on making breakfast for our daughter. I didn't think much of it, just took another sip and went to work. But that weird taste started bugging me more and more, messing with my stomach and nerves. "What are you doing?" Sophie asked when she saw me, just standing there staring at the coffee package. I checked the ingredients and the expiration date. Everything's good, but the taste is off. I think I need to switch the coffee. My wife nodded and left while I made the coffee. The next morning, Sophie handed me the coffee and fixed my uniform. "Why aren't you drinking it? Just staring at it." I'm wondering why it's got so much foam." "Alright, it's fine." Sophie gently pushed the coffee towards me. "Have a good day at work." She kissed me on the cheek after I finished. The strong taste that stuck in my mouth after the coffee had me feeling off all day. That night I grabbed some chlorine test strips because I thought the water might be contaminated. The test showed the water was totally fine, which just left me even more confused. Thanks to my military training, I always stay alert and keep cool no matter what. Someone's gotta be messing with this. I bought a camera, the tiniest kind, set it up in the kitchen, and quickly figured out what was going on. Sophie was putting something in my coffee maker. I just kept an eye on Sophie through the camera for a few more days, not making a big deal out of it or anything. She opened the kitchen drawer, then the coffee maker, and all of it took less than 20 seconds. That night, I went home and filmed the whole process of testing the water with the chlorine strips. The water from the faucet was totally fine, but the water in the coffee maker, it turned purple right away. I was stunned for a few minutes, just feeling all sorts of things I can't even describe. For what? Did I make a mistake or something? Over the next few days, I kept pretending to drink the coffee just to keep recording Sophie's sneaky moves. Her sweet talk and all that fake caring stuff gave me the chills. Behind that sweet, warm smile, there was the look of a devil every time she saw me happily grab my coffee to head to work. I couldn't even eat the fancy meals she made, always feeling sick thinking if I was swallowing some kind of poison. But I kept telling myself to stay calm. Over a month later, I brought my wife and kid back to the US since my military service was ending. And that's when I decided it was time to call the police. I gave them all the camera footage as proof, but the police couldn't figure out what Sophie had put in the coffee maker. I had to step it up and buy more cameras, setting them up in the kitchen, laundry room, and other spots to get more evidence. Sophie's coffee recipe didn't take long to figure out. She went to the laundry room, grabbed some detergent, and poured it into my coffee maker. When I got home, I filmed myself cleaning the coffee maker for the 8th time, and there were still a ton of detergent bubbles floating up. I used the chlorine test strip again. Still purple. So I called the police, and this time, Sophie got arrested. After 9 years with my wife, I said goodbye, feeling pretty bitter about it. In 9 years, what did I do to deserve this from you? Is something missing in your life now, Sophie? We're done here. This story is based on a real case that went down in 2023. At the time of the incident, U.S. Air Force pilot Robbie was stationed in Germany with his wife and kid while serving in the military. All because she wanted to cash in on the life insurance Robbie's wife Melody was willing to poison him. Melody had a dark plan. By slipping detergent into Robbie's coffee, she aimed to slowly poison him without leaving a trace. But with his military training, Robbie sensed something was off and set up hidden cameras all around the house. And in the end, the truth came to light. My name is John, 22 years old, working as an employee at a Domino's store on the outskirts of town.
Although the restaurant is small, it is quite busy, especially in the evening. One late night around 9:30 p.m., the restaurant only had 1 to 2 customers left. That night, I worked with a colleague named Mary. The bell rang, signaling that the store had customers. Mary was busy, so I went to the counter to continue. I quickly wiped my hands on my apron and ran out with a cheerful voice. But the weirdest thing was there was no one around. At first I thought it was child's pranks. I was about to turn around and go inside when suddenly a customer walked in. In front of me was a tall, thin man with a pale face and deep black eyes. He was wearing a long black coat, looking quite sloppy. I politely asked him what he needed. He ordered a large pizza with mushrooms and bell peppers on top. Nothing else. The strange thing was that he asked me to cut the pizza into equilateral triangles, each side exactly 13 centimeters long. I think he's probably quite picky about what he eats. Quickly making pizza according to the customer's request, I carefully measured and cut each pizza slice to exactly 13 centimeters. As I cut into the pizza, I felt cold air run down my spine. I looked up a bit startled. There was something strange about the man's silhouette on the wall, as if it was twisted and deformed. I gave him the pizza. He gave me a lot of change. He stared at me and gave me a scary smile. I shivered a bit when his hand touched mine. Looking down, I was startled to realize that there were no fingers in his hand, only sharp, fleshy tips. My body trembled, unable to move. I kept looking towards that man until he was gone. I still stood there without moving until Mary ran over and patted my shoulder. She asked why I was standing here, and I explained that I had just sold a large pizza to a strange man. Mary seemed surprised and told me that she didn't see any customers, nor did she see me selling any pizza. She said the store had been empty for a while. She was cleaning the kitchen and couldn't find me. To my surprise, I confirmed that I had indeed sold a large pizza topped with mushrooms and bell peppers to a man. I put my hand in front of Mary and said this is the amount the customer paid. Both Mary and I were startled when we saw a handful of soil full of insects in our hands. I panicked and threw that horrible thing to the ground. Insects crawled on the floor. Mary screamed in fear. Mary and I decided to check the store's security cameras to review the entire incident. However, I didn't see any customers entering the store. The whole thing was just me standing in front of the door talking to myself. Not believing what I saw, I checked the pizza cutting area again. But Mary and I were shocked when we saw a pile of soil full of insects on the kitchen table. I decided to report it to the police. It was absurd and ridiculous, but all the evidence I had was a handful of soil full of insects. Police discovered dirty footprints in front of the pizza shop that ended right at the right turn next to the store. The strange thing is that the distance between the steps is exactly 13 centimeters. After a period of investigation, the police did not find any trace or information related to the strange man or the horrifying event that Mary and I experienced. Mary and I quit our jobs right after that because we were so scared. After 2 months of quitting my job, the face of the man who bought the pizza that day still did not let me go. One morning I read an article that found the murderer of a construction worker 5 years ago. The poor worker was then 31 years old. He was pushed into the concrete mixer. His body was mixed with concrete and soil. His decomposing body was buried with the concrete and cement right under the foundation of the structure. I felt my heart sink when I read about the construction project of the pizza shop that I worked at 2 months ago. I've got an office job with a steady paycheck. Lately, I've been driving for a ride-hailing service whenever I've got some free time. Even though it's just a side gig, It brings in some pretty decent money. What I love about this driving gig is meeting and chatting with all kinds of people from different jobs. Getting 5-star reviews with nice comments from customers keeps me pumped all day. After a few months of juggling 2 jobs, I decided to take a few days off. I took a drive up to Oregon, known for its cool rainforests and awesome rivers. In the fall, the pine trees and maple leaves turn yellow and red, making everything look romantic. Honestly, I had my first love in Oregon, and everything about that first time was totally unforgettable. After 4 days soaking in the romantic vibes of Oregon, I headed back in the evening, because my car had some issues. Halfway through the trip, my phone buzzed with a notification from the ride-hailing app. There's a customer nearby waiting for you to pick up. Weirdly enough, I didn't have the app on ready mode since I was on vacation. A notification popped up again. There's a customer nearby waiting for you to pick up. Not wanting my star rating to hit a low, I went ahead and accepted the trip. When I got to the customer's place, according to the GPS, it started to drizzle, and I looked around but didn't see anyone. Out of nowhere, there was a knock on the passenger door. I turned around and saw a guy peeking inside. I rolled down the window and quickly told the customer to hop in the car. "The back seat of yours," he said while pointing, and I glanced in that direction too. My back seat was loaded with stuff for the trip. "I'm sorry. I can just chill in the passenger seat. Is it a hassle for you?" "I'm fine, no worries." He opened the door and hopped in, and I felt lucky to have an easygoing customer. But his face looked pretty stiff. Checking out where the customer wanted to go, I got lucky, because it was on the same route as my place. "Oregon is beautiful, isn't it?" "Yeah, I really love Oregon." "But how did you know I was just there?" I was totally surprised. He looked at me and said, "I guess so, especially with all the stuff in your car." I just nodded and smiled. After chatting for a bit, I thought he was pretty cool, but the look on his face could be kind of misleading. "Does your job feel more stressful since you got promoted?" I didn't answer his question and just shot him a suspicious look. "Sorry, but did I ever say that?" You told me that a few minutes ago," he replied, not even looking at me. "I don't really remember. Maybe I did say it, but I'm not sure, so I just nodded and let it go." The vibe went quiet, and I just focused on driving, not really paying much attention to the passenger next to me anymore. It wasn't pouring, but visibility was kinda low, so I had to drive super careful. I got home 20 minutes earlier than I thought I would. Glancing back at the map to check the exact address the passenger booked, I was shocked and hit the brake hard without even thinking. "This is my home address," I screamed inside my head, trying to open my eyes as wide as I could to see the address clearly again. "What's up, Philip?" the guy asked in a way that gave me the creeps. How do you know my name?" I swear, I never said my name. This guy was really sketchy. There's no way I mentioned going on vacation in Oregon or getting promoted at work. "What's your deal? How do you know my name and all this info?" I switched to high alert and said it in a serious tone. "I just want to go home." His cold eyes were the last thing I really saw clearly. My feet were glued to the gas pedal when I heard the loud crash of a collision. I felt the airbag go off, and my head and hands were bleeding. I turned to look at the guy next to me, and the worst thought hit me. He might be dead, but there was no one there. The car door was still closed, and the man had vanished. Someone yelled really loud and then rushed to call the police. My vision went all blurry and red, and then I blacked out. When I woke up in the hospital, I couldn't believe I actually made it through. Luckily, I only had some minor injuries to my soft parts. Police took my statement and looked into it for a month. In the end, they figured the guy was just my imagination or a hallucination because I was worn out from driving. I still remember the guy's voice and face super clearly, even though it's been almost 8 years. I stopped driving for a living and never drove at night again. I was checking out my wife Chasey's creepy web browser history. I'm Ted, and I'm 35. I'm going through some really tough days, feeling trapped in my marriage. My wife, Chasey, is 4 years younger than me. We've been married for almost 5 years and have a sweet baby boy. I'm always telling my friends and coworkers how I have a happy family. My wife and I both have good jobs and incomes, and we can easily afford all the conveniences that make our lives comfortable. Then one day, my world came crashing down. It was a weekend morning, and Chasey had plans to go out and meet her friends. My wife has a group of 4 close friends, and they're all beautiful and successful women. Chasey is really thoughtful. She brought our son with her so I could have some peace and quiet to rest. I woke up at 9 a.m., went downstairs, and found that my wife had left breakfast ready for me before heading out, along with a note. I love Chasey for little things like that. While I was having breakfast, I checked a bit of work. I noticed an email from a client that I hadn't dealt with yet. Unfortunately, my computer was acting up at the time, and I needed to respond to the client quickly. I ran upstairs to use Chasey's computer. The password was definitely our wedding anniversary. When I opened the web browser, I was a bit shocked to see so many search tabs that Chasey had left open. I chuckled a bit. Seems like any woman using a phone or laptop would have a similar setup to my wife's. But that smile quickly faded when I started reading through it. What are the divorce procedures? It took me a few minutes just to carefully read that short line, and all I felt at that moment was anxiety. Check the date of that search. It was from a month ago. But even after a month, everything in my family seems normal. I kept looking through the other search tabs and proof of separate property when divorcing, conditions for child custody, what should I do when my husband cheats, how to hurt a traitor. The more I read, the more scared and panicked I felt. I couldn't stop thinking about Chasey's thoughts and intentions while she was typing these search lines, all while seeming so happy in front of me. Why could this be happening? There were many other searches from Chasey that reminded me of those creepy anatomy scenes in horror movies. My body was cold, but I was sweating heavily and my heart was racing. I need to let Katie, one of Chasey's close friends, know about this. The phone is ringing, but why isn't she answering? Ted, honey, I'm home. Chasey's call made me jump like a coiled spring. Chasey's laptop hit the floor with a loud bang. I had never been so scared of my wife. I quickly picked up the laptop, tried to remember where I had found it, set it down, and answered Chasey. You are home? I had just walked out of the bedroom when Chasey arrived at the same time. Facing my wife, I was tense and anxious, even though she greeted me with her familiar smile. Where's our son? I left him with Naomi. He's going to the amusement park with her daughter. I smiled and nodded, trying to figure out what to say next. Guess who's coming to visit us today? In front of me, Chasey pulled Katie's hand closer. I felt dizzy all of a sudden. Chasey flashed a bright smile, looking at me and then at Katie. I could tell how tense Katie was. She looked at me with a pleading expression. I looked at Katie with a face full of questions and helplessness. "What's wrong with you?" Chasey's voice snapped Katie and me back to reality. I gave a stiff smile and greeted Katie. Chasey led Katie to the living room and asked me to get some water for the guests. I brought 2 glasses of orange juice and set them on the table. "Katie is really attractive, isn't she?" Chasey's question startled me, and I ended up spilling the orange juice on Katie. The scene was pretty chaotic. Chasey scolded me a few times before taking Katie into our bedroom to change. The sound of the door locking made me jump. I glanced toward the bedroom while trying to clean up the orange juice. More than 30 minutes passed, and I was sitting on pins and needles in the living room, my eyes fixed on the bedroom door. I went to knock on the door, but thinking about Chasey's expression made me too scared to do it. It felt like the spacious living room was running out of oxygen for me to breathe. Suddenly, a loud scream filled with pain and panic came from inside. I couldn't tell if it was Chasey or Katie screaming. "Chasey, honey, is everything okay?" I was met with a satisfied laugh, which I thought might be Chasey's, but I couldn't be sure. I shouted for Chasey to open the door. I kept banging on the door, trying to get a reaction from whoever was inside. A moment later, the door opened. I was about to rush in, but Chasey stopped me, still smiling brightly. Her body was covered in red spots from head to toe. The white dress she was wearing made the red spots stand out even more. I trembled and tried to move closer, but Chasey immediately shot me a cold, stern look. She threw the divorce papers and a bunch of evidence of my affair with Katie right in my face. Katie was a close friend of 15 years, whom Chasey always considered like family. Katie and I have been together for 4 years now. I know a lot of people will judge me when I say that. Chasey left without saying any words. I rushed into the room to find Katie, who was huddled in the corner shaking. Next to her was a pair of scissors lying in a pool of red liquid. Katie rushed to hug me and cried, but she was completely fine and healthy. "Ted, she meant to hurt me, but then she ended up hurting herself." Pushed Katie away and ran after my wife, who had been taken to the hospital by the neighbors. Chasey was diagnosed with severe mass depression. The illness began after Chasey gave birth, and her son is now 5 years old. She filed for divorce and sued me after her treatment. Watching my wife and son leave, I felt overwhelming regret. I had it all, but I messed it up. So what can I do to get Chasey's forgiveness and make my family happy again?
I'm Kate, 22 years old, and I'm a senior at Ohio State. My boyfriend Alden is a year older than me. He's a mechanic at a small garage outside of town. We've been together for almost 2 years now. That day, Alden picked me up after class. We grabbed dinner at a restaurant in the city, then went to a late movie. After the movie, Alden drove me home. I was in the passenger seat, looking out the window. On both sides of the road were endless corn and soybean fields. The car's headlights lit up the empty lane. Every now and then, a car or two would zoom past us in the opposite direction. "We're almost out of gas," Alden said, looking at the fuel gauge. The needle was almost touching the red line. I checked the GPS on my phone. "We're still 20 minutes from your place." "I don't think we'll make it home. We need to find a gas station nearby," he said. "I think I saw a gas station around here once when I was driving through." This was an area I'd never been to before. The road was narrow, with dense woods on both sides. The houses were sparse, hundreds of yards apart. The air in the car grew silent. I felt a little uneasy looking out the window. The dark shadows from the trees seemed to move with the car. "Is this place really out of the way?" I asked. He'd only been on this road once too. After about 5 minutes of driving on the deserted road, we saw a faint light ahead. A gas station sign appeared. It was a small gas station with 2 pumps in front of a convenience store. There wasn't a soul in sight. "Is this place even open?" I looked around. The pumps are still lit up. It should be fine. Alden pulled in, stopping at pump number 2. When the engine turned off, we were surrounded by absolute silence. I glanced around and suddenly shivered. "This place feels a little creepy," I whispered. "Let's just get gas and go. You wait in the car for me, okay?" Alden closed the car door softly. I sat in the car, watching Alden. He was pumping gas and looking at his phone. In the rearview mirror, I saw a white car. It was driving very slowly, approaching the gas station, then stopped about 30 feet from us. Alden was looking at his phone, completely oblivious to the car that had just appeared. The headlights of the car behind us were still on, so I couldn't see clearly who was inside. A few more minutes passed. The white car didn't turn off its engine, and no one got out. I felt strange. Are they not planning to get gas? The white car suddenly backed up a little. Maybe they're thinking about it and decided not to get gas, I thought. The dark outline of a person sitting in the driver's seat appeared. The person sat still, seemingly looking towards Alden. The driver's side window slowly rolled down. A hand reached out. In the hand was something black. I squinted to see more clearly. A black handgun. My eyes widened as much as they could. My mouth fell open. My hands trembled, dropping my phone onto the car floor. The gun slowly pointed towards Alden. My whole body froze, a finger on the trigger. "Alden, look out!" My voice shattered the silence. Alden jumped, turning his head to look at me, a very surprised look on his face. The person in the white car heard me scream. The gun disappeared back into the car in a flash. The car door immediately closed. Alden stood there looking at me, not understanding what was happening. "Kate? What's wrong?" The white car suddenly made a sharp U-turn. The tires screeched loudly against the pavement, creating a piercing sound. The car sped up, driving very fast towards the main road. The red taillights grew smaller and then disappeared completely. I sat in the car, shaking uncontrollably. My heart was pounding so fast, I thought it would jump out of my chest. My breath was shallow, and my hands were drenched in sweat. Alden pulled the gas nozzle out, closed the gas cap, and then ran over to me. He opened the car door. "What's wrong with you? What happened?" I looked at him, my eyes filled with tears. "Alden, didn't you see? That white car?" "What white car?" Alden looked in the direction of the road. There was a white car parked right there. The person in the car, he had a gun, Alden. Alden looked at me as if he didn't believe me. "A gun?" "He was holding a gun pointed right at you. I saw it very clearly." Alden looked around one more time. The road was completely deserted. Alden was silent for a moment, then quickly finished filling the tank and drove away as fast as he could. I kept checking the rearview mirror, afraid the white car would appear and chase us. "Kate, are you sure you saw a gun?" "Absolutely, Alden. If I hadn't yelled, you would have..." I couldn't finish my sentence. Alden drove really fast. His hands gripped the steering wheel tightly. When we got home, we parked in the garage and locked the doors carefully. I said we had to call the police immediately, but Alden strongly disagreed. "If we call the police without evidence, they'll think we're making it up. Just forget about it." I was surprised by Alden's attitude, but I didn't want to make a bigger deal out of it either. A week later, while helping Alden clean up, I accidentally found an old photo box at the bottom of a closet. In it were pictures of him with a group of tough-looking people, their arms covered in tattoos and strange symbols. When I asked about the photos, Alden just said they were old friends and quickly put them away. That night, I couldn't sleep no matter how hard I tried. The image of the gun haunted me, But it was Alden's strange behavior that unsettled me the most. Those photos kept flashing through my mind. I quietly started to find out. Through social media, I tracked down a few faces from the pictures. One was serving time for arms trafficking. Another had mysteriously disappeared last year. Every time I brought it up, Alden either brushed me off or snapped at me. The next morning, I left him a note that read, "Don't come looking for me." I decided to get out of town. I didn't know the full truth, but one thing was clear. If I stayed any longer, I might never get the chance to leave.